The peaceful silence of Earth was shattered in an instant. For weeks, there had been strange reports, disturbances in space, signals coming from distant stars, and faint whispers of an approaching threat. But no one truly believed it. Earth had always been safe, isolated from the chaos of the universe. No one expected that on one fateful night, the sky would rip open and an army unlike anything humanity had ever seen would descend. Thousands of alien ships, sleek and menacing, pierced the atmosphere, their massive forms casting shadows over the cities below. The ships were controlled by a malevolent eye, an intelligence that had conquered countless civilizations across the galaxy. Their arrival was not a greeting, but a declaration of war. A cold, robotic voice echoed through every communication channel on Earth, reaching the ears of every human on the planet. Your world will belong to us. Surrender or be destroyed. In an instant, chaos erupted. People screamed in panic as they watched the sky darken with the alien armada. The first strikes came quickly, laser beams that cut through buildings, causing explosions that shook the ground. The alien ships released robotic drones, small but deadly, which spread across the world, methodically attacking human defenses. Cities crumbled under the relentless assault. Earth's military forces scrambled, but it was clear from the start they were hopelessly outmatched. Their weapons were nothing compared to the advanced technology of the invaders. The cameras captured the destruction from all angles. Buildings collapsing, flames lighting up the night sky, people running for their lives. Humanity was powerless against the overwhelming force. The once proud cities of Earth were now just ruins, and the invaders showed no mercy. As the alien ships hovered over the shattered landscapes, the message was clear: Earth was theirs for the taking. But amidst the madness, a different scene unfolded far away from the eyes of the invaders. Hidden in the mountains, buried deep in the wilderness, a small human military force prepared for something no one expected: a last-ditch attempt to fight back. This force was not made up of the regular army, but rather a group of elite soldiers, trained in secret for a war no one believed could ever happen. General Mira Jacobs, a woman who had risen through the ranks on her intelligence and strategic brilliance, stood at the helm of this hidden army. She watched the destruction unfolding on the screens in front of her, her face a mix of determination and disbelief. She knew the odds. They had no fleet, no overwhelming numbers, and their weapons were primitive compared to the alien technology. But there was something they had that the invaders didn't: human ingenuity. "Everyone, prepare for deployment," General Jacobs ordered, her voice calm but unwavering. "We may be outnumbered, but we are not without hope. We have something they'll never understand: our creativity, our resilience, and most importantly, our secret weapon." As the soldiers moved into position, the weight of the situation became clear. There was no backup, no reinforcements, no escape. This was their only chance. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity could fight back, that Earth wasn't just going to roll over and accept its fate. The invaders had underestimated the power of the human spirit. General Jacobs knew that their first strike had to be swift and precise. The alien drones were powerful, but they had their weaknesses. The soldiers had been preparing for months, secretly testing new technologies that could give them a fighting chance. Cloaking devices, advanced AI systems, and even gravity manipulation tech had all been integrated into their arsenal. It was far from perfect, but it was humanity's best shot at turning the tide. As the team prepared to launch their first strike against the alien forces, Jacobs gathered her soldiers together. Their faces were grim, but there was a fire in their eyes, something the aliens didn't have. It wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for their future. And this tiny hidden army was all that stood between Earth and total annihilation. "Stay focused, stay sharp," Jacobs said, looking each soldier in the eye. "This is our world. We fight for every inch of it." The teams split into their designated units, each taking their positions. The atmosphere was tense. the air thick with the knowledge that this could very well be the end. But Jacobs didn't allow fear to take root. She had seen the destruction the aliens were capable of, and she knew what was at stake. But she also knew that they had one advantage: their ability to think outside the box, to surprise the enemy when they least expected it. As the first wave of alien drones advanced towards a nearby city, the human force moved into position. Jacobs and her team had one goal: to hit the aliens where it hurt. They knew they couldn't face them head-on, so they planned to strike from the shadows, using every tool at their disposal to outsmart the invaders. The moment of truth arrived. Jacobs gave the signal, and the soldiers activated their cloaking devices. For a moment, they disappeared into thin air, blending seamlessly with the environment. The alien drones continued their march, unaware of the human presence just meters away. With precise coordination, the soldiers launched their attack. The first explosion was timed perfectly, taking out a group of drones with a single blast. The aliens were caught off guard, their robotic soldiers scrambling to assess the situation. But the humans didn't give them a chance to recover. As the drones regrouped, Jacob's team used their advanced AI systems to control the battlefield, redirecting enemy movements and forcing the aliens into traps. The alien forces were powerful, but they were not prepared for this kind of resistance. The drones, despite their technological superiority, were outmatched by the humans' guerrilla tactics. The soldiers moved swiftly, striking in the shadows, never giving the enemy a moment to catch their breath. But as the battle raged on, Jacobs knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would retaliate, stronger, faster, and more relentless. This was only a small victory in what would become a war for Earth's survival. The stakes were higher than ever. With each successful strike, the humans' resolve grew stronger. They weren't just fighting for their homes. They were fighting for the very soul of humanity. The aliens had come to conquer, to crush Earth beneath their heel. But Jacobs and her soldiers were determined to prove that no force, no matter how advanced, could ever defeat the human spirit. As the final drone fell and the dust began to settle, Jacobs stood tall, watching as the first victory of the war was won. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. And in that moment, humanity's hope flickered back to life. The air was thick with tension as General Mira Jacobs watched the satellite feeds of the battle. The human force, although vastly outnumbered, had managed to inflict some damage to the alien invaders. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The alien eye, confident in its superiority, had underestimated humanity. It was the first real sign that the invaders weren't invincible. It wasn't much, but it was a crack in the armor. And in war, sometimes that's all you need to start breaking it apart. The scene on the ground was chaotic. The alien drones, mechanical, emotionless killing machines, had been scattered across the outskirts of a ruined city. It had been their first real encounter with the humans, and they had been blindsided by the unexpected resistance. The drones were designed for precision strikes and overwhelming force, not for counterattacks by guerrilla soldiers using old, outdated weaponry in creative ways. But that's exactly what the humans had done. Captain Harris, a battle-hardened soldier with a heart full of rage, stood in the midst of the chaos. He gripped his weapon tightly, his knuckles white as memories of his past flooded his mind. He wasn't fighting just to survive. He was fighting for revenge. The alien invasion had taken everything from him: his family, his home, and any sense of peace. His wife, his young daughter, gone in an instant when the alien ships arrived. The eye-controlled forces had shown no mercy, wiping out everything in their path without a second thought. His grief and anger burned deep inside, fueling his every move. Harris wasn't the only one with personal stakes. Each soldier in the small human army had a reason to fight, but none more intense than Harris. His past was raw, and it drove him to be the kind of soldier the aliens didn't anticipate. When his squad moved into position, the plan was simple: ambush and retreat. The humans had no delusions of taking the alien drones head-on, but that didn't mean they couldn't make their presence felt. The moment the first wave of drones appeared on the horizon, the human force sprang into action. Harris led the charge, his team disappearing into the shadows, activating their cloaking devices. The alien drones, with all their advanced sensors, couldn't detect the human soldiers, who were now hidden in plain sight, blending into the environment. For the drones, it was like a nightmare come to life. The enemy they couldn't see was attacking with deadly precision. The human soldiers used basic but effective weapons, homemade explosives, sniper rifles, and simple automated turrets. These tools, though primitive in comparison to the alien tech, were in the hands of soldiers who understood the art of war. They fought not with the power of advanced technology, but with tactics that the drones couldn't adapt to quickly enough. Harris's squad set up traps along narrow alleys and between ruined buildings. They'd learned the hard way that fighting in the open was a death sentence. The drones moved in a coordinated, almost robotic fashion, but humans were unpredictable, and it was that unpredictability that gave them the edge. As the first wave of drones entered the city's perimeter, the trap was sprung. Explosions rocked the street as Harris and his team launched their attack. The blast caught several drones off guard, and they went down in a flurry of sparks and debris. But the fight didn't end there. The drones, despite their destruction, continued to advance, their processors quickly calculating the next steps. It was a relentless wave, but the humans kept up their guerrilla tactics, firing from behind corners and slipping back into the shadows. The drones weren't used to this kind of warfare. They were programmed to overwhelm and destroy, to face enemies head-on. But this wasn't a traditional battle. The humans weren't trying to win. They were trying to survive, and in doing so, they had found a way to force the invaders to think, to question their strategy. For the first time, the aliens were facing resistance that wasn't predictable. They could scan the area, detect movement, and fire back with lethal precision. But they couldn't anticipate the humans' next move. The drones would advance, only to find themselves ambushed again. The human soldiers had become shadows, slipping in and out of the fight like ghosts, making it clear that they were far from defeated. But this wasn't just about tactics. It was about revenge. Harris moved with an intensity that was unmatched. Every drone he took down was one more step towards avenging his family. Every successful ambush was a small victory in a larger war. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, grief, anger, and a burning desire to make the invaders pay. It fueled him like nothing else. He remembered the last time he had seen his daughter's face, her wide eyes, full of life and promise. He could still hear the echoes of her laughter in his mind, and it drove him forward. The aliens had taken everything from him, but they couldn't take his will to fight. He would make them regret ever setting foot on Earth. As the ambush continued, the drones began to regroup, adapting to the human tactics. The first few waves had been caught off guard, but now, the aliens were starting to respond more efficiently. The humans could sense the tide shifting. The element of surprise was fading. But they weren't done yet. Every victory, no matter how small, was a step towards something bigger. They weren't going to give up. Not now. Not when there was still a chance to strike back. Jacobs, watching from her command center, could feel the tension in the air. The soldiers were holding their ground, but the fight was far from over. She knew that the aliens would soon adjust their strategy, and that the coming days would bring even fiercer battles. But the resistance they had shown today was more than just a skirmish. It was a message to the invaders that Earth wasn't going to surrender without a fight. As the battle raged on, Captain Harris' unit pressed forward. They had lost some good men, and Harris could feel the weight of each loss. But with every death, with every sacrifice, their resolve grew stronger. The alien drones were relentless, but so were they. The humans may have been outnumbered and outgunned, but they weren't out of hope. And as long as they had the will to fight, they would keep pushing back. The first victory was theirs, but they knew that it was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but with each drone they destroyed, with each ambush they executed, they proved that humanity was far from finished. In the depths of the ruined city, Harris stood over the wreckage of another fallen drone. His face was streaked with dirt and sweat, but his eyes burned with the fire of vengeance. This was just the beginning, and he would fight for as long as it took. For Earth, for his family, for revenge. The alien AI, after the initial surprise, began to recalibrate. It was no longer underestimating humanity. The resistance was much stronger than it had ever anticipated. Alien commanders, once confident in their supremacy, were now questioning how such a small, primitive race could fight back so effectively. They had started to believe their victory was assured. Earth's defenses were weak, and the alien technology was far superior. But that belief was slowly fading. The humans, though vastly outnumbered and technologically inferior in many respects, had a secret weapon that the aliens hadn't accounted for: human ingenuity. They didn't just rely on sheer numbers or advanced tech. Instead, they combined their creativity, resilience, and newfound technological breakthroughs to turn the tide of the battle. The most significant breakthrough came when the human forces, with help from the best scientists and engineers hidden in underground bunkers, unveiled a new form of technology: gravity manipulation suits. These suits, designed for human soldiers, allowed them to manipulate gravity fields, lifting objects, and even altering the trajectories of incoming projectiles. With these suits, the humans could disrupt the flight patterns of alien ships, forcing them into a spiral that would end with them crashing down onto the surface of the planet. It wasn't just about ground combat anymore. The battlefield had expanded to the skies, where human forces, equipped with gravity-altering tech, began to fight on equal footing with the alien ships. The sight was breathtaking. Human soldiers in specialized suits soaring through the air, their movements slow but deliberate as they reached out with their hands to manipulate the gravity fields of alien ships above. Alien dreadnoughts, once invulnerable in their high orbit, were now being dragged down, forced to plummet towards Earth, helpless and falling like great meteors. One of the most dramatic moments of the battle came when a massive alien dreadnought, the size of a small city, fell from the sky. The great ship, previously an impenetrable fortress, now struggled against the overwhelming gravity field created by a team of human soldiers. They pushed the limits of their suits to their absolute maximum, and the dreadnought's descent became an unstoppable force. It crashed into the ground with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves through the earth, crushing anything and anyone in its path. The destruction was enormous, but it wasn't enough to destroy the alien army. The wreckage of the dreadnought created a temporary gap in the alien ranks, but the fight was far from over. The humans had taken a significant step forward, but now they faced an even greater challenge. The aliens would learn and adapt. The victory came at a cost. Humanity had finally gained the upper hand, but it wouldn't last forever. In the chaos, one soldier stood out among the rest: Sergeant Bonner. A stalwart and beloved member of the resistance, Bonner had been with the human forces since the very beginning. He had seen his friends die, watched cities burn, and fought on the front lines in some of the fiercest battles. His resolve was unshakable. However, in that moment of victory, Bonner's decision would come to define his legacy. As the dreadnought fell, Bonner saw that the alien forces were regrouping quickly, preparing for a counterattack. The gap in the alien line was closing, and the advantage humanity had gained was slipping away. The destruction of the dreadnought hadn't been enough to turn the tide completely. The humans needed more time, but there was no way to slow down the oncoming alien forces without making an unimaginable sacrifice. In a selfless, heart-wrenching act of bravery, Bonner made his choice. He knew what needed to be done. He activated his suit's gravity field, forcing himself to descend quickly toward the wreckage of the fallen dreadnought. He used the last of his strength to create a massive gravitational surge, directing it toward the alien reinforcements preparing to storm the battlefield. His action triggered an explosion powerful enough to halt the alien advance for just long enough to give his comrades the upper hand. But it came at a cost. Bonner's body, overwhelmed by the forces he had unleashed, was caught in the gravitational field. His life was taken in an instant, a hero's sacrifice that would be remembered by every soldier who fought beside him. The explosion he caused wiped out dozens of alien soldiers and bought humanity precious minutes. In those minutes, the humans struck with renewed fury. AI-assisted drones, equipped with high-precision weapons, zipped through the air, attacking the alien forces in calculated, synchronized bursts. Cloaked robots, designed for close-quarters combat, infiltrated the enemy lines, slashing through alien defenses with terrifying efficiency. It was a brutal, fast-paced assault, but it was enough. The human forces were slowly, steadily gaining ground. The loss of Bonner was devastating, and yet it had the opposite effect on his comrades than the invaders expected. Instead of breaking their spirit, Bonner's sacrifice galvanized them. Every soldier, every person fighting for Earth, knew that they were now part of something much bigger than themselves. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for justice, for the memory of those they had lost, for Bonner. As the humans pressed on, the battlefield seemed to shift. What had once been a fight for survival had now become a fight for victory. The aliens, once so confident in their dominance, were now on the defensive. The crash of the dreadnoughts, the gravity manipulation suits, the AI-assisted strategies, all of it was having a profound effect on the invaders. They could see the tide turning. The balance of power was shifting, and it was no longer in their favor. The visuals were stunning. Gravity fields distorting the very air, ships tumbling from the sky in slow motion, each crash an echo of humanity's defiance. The humans weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to win, to take back their home, to reclaim the Earth that had once been theirs. Bonner's death, painful as it was, had lit a fire in the hearts of the soldiers. His sacrifice wasn't in vain. It had given them the strength to continue, to push forward when they had every reason to fall back. They fought with everything they had left, every soldier, every piece of technology. Every ounce of willpower was now focused on one thing: defeating the alien invaders. And as the humans moved forward, they knew one thing for sure. The war was far from over, but it had taken a critical turn. The aliens were no longer the unstoppable force they once were. They were now the ones who had to adapt, and they were finding it harder and harder to keep up with the unpredictable, creative tactics of humanity. The battle for Earth had entered a new phase, and the invaders would soon realize that the fight they had started was one they might not be able to win. As the battle for Earth reached its most intense point, the humans began to feel the weight of their resistance. The aliens were relentless, and every victory, no matter how small, came at a steep cost. Yet despite the odds, General Mira Jacobs and her team of soldiers continued to fight with a determination that was impossible to ignore. They knew that the war wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about winning, about reclaiming their world from an enemy that had shown no mercy. Then the alien AI overlords made their move. The humans had managed to cripple many of the alien forces, but the AI wasn't finished. It had one final weapon left in its arsenal: a massive AI-controlled battleship capable of erasing entire cities with a single blast. This was the endgame. General Jacobs knew this was their last chance to defeat the invaders. If they couldn't stop this battleship, Earth would fall. The stakes had never been higher. The human forces, despite being outmatched in terms of raw power, had managed to build up an arsenal of advanced technology. They weren't ready to give up just yet. General Jacobs had already made the decision. It was time for a full-scale assault. The resistance was now armed with the most sophisticated weaponry humanity had ever developed. With cloaking devices, gravity manipulation suits, and AI-assisted drones, they had one last shot at infiltrating the alien battleship and taking it down from the inside. The plan was simple: a small squadron of infiltrators, led by General Jacobs herself, would board the battleship, disable its AI core, and destroy it from within. The humans knew the risks. They were vastly outnumbered, and the enemy ship was practically indestructible. But they also knew that the longer the battleship remained intact, the more people would die. This mission was their last hope. The first phase of the operation was brutal. As the human squadron, cloaked and silent, approached the battleship's outer perimeter, they had to deal with numerous alien defense systems. The ship was heavily guarded, with automated turrets and patrols of alien drones making every step more difficult than the last. But the human soldiers, trained for this kind of mission, moved with deadly precision. Each step was calculated, every action taken with the full knowledge that failure meant certain death. The tension was palpable. Every soldier in the squadron knew that one wrong move could trigger a full-scale alarm. They had no room for mistakes. General Jacobs led the charge, her every decision shaping the course of the mission. Her heart raced, but her mind remained calm. She had to stay focused. For every soldier on the team, for every person back on Earth, she had to succeed. As they infiltrated the enemy lines, the humans encountered fierce resistance. Alien robots, advanced, relentless, and programmed for efficiency, were stationed at every corner. The humans, using their cloaking devices, moved quickly and silently, avoiding detection as much as possible. But despite their best efforts, some encounters were inevitable. The firefights that followed were intense, chaotic bursts of action, with laser fire cutting through the air. The sounds of weapons clashing and the screeching of alien machinery filled the air as the soldiers fought tooth and nail to stay alive. Captain Harris, still haunted by the loss of his best friend Bonner, fought like a man possessed. Every move, every shot he fired was driven by the memory of Bonner's sacrifice. The emotional weight of that loss pushed him forward, even when his body screamed for rest. He had made a promise to Bonner, and he intended to keep it. As the team advanced through the ship, Captain Harris found himself more determined than ever to see the mission through. It wasn't just the soldiers who were fighting for their lives. It was the memory of those they had lost. Each victory, no matter how small, felt like a step toward honoring the fallen. Bonner's face, forever etched in Harris's mind, gave him the strength to keep going. But the deeper they ventured into the alien ship, the more casualties they suffered. With each fallen soldier, the emotional toll became harder to bear. The battles inside the ship were nothing short of brutal. The humans were outgunned and outnumbered, and the alien defenses were formidable. Yet the human spirit, forged through hardship and loss, was proving to be an unstoppable force. The soldiers fought with everything they had, using their advanced technology to gain every possible advantage. But as the squadron moved deeper into the battleship's core, the tension escalated. The AI-controlled battleship was like a maze, with tight corridors and enemy patrols waiting around every corner. The humans had to rely on their wits and their advanced technology to outsmart the alien forces. At times, it felt like there was no end to the danger. Each step forward seemed to bring a new challenge, a new threat. The soldiers had to remain vigilant at all times, knowing that the smallest mistake could cost them everything. The emotional strain was beginning to take its toll. The soldiers, particularly Captain Harris, were starting to feel the weight of the mission. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion, it was the emotional burden that weighed heavily on them. Every time they lost a comrade, it felt like they lost a piece of themselves. But they knew they couldn't stop. They had come too far. The fate of Earth was in their hands. As they finally reached the AI core, the tension reached a boiling point. The room was massive, filled with advanced alien technology and a pulsating core that controlled the entire battleship. The squadron had one shot. They had to destroy the AI before it could unleash its devastating power on Earth. General Jacobs, her heart pounding in her chest, gave the order. They had no choice now. It was do or die. The final assault was a blur of action. The humans, having fought their way to the core, began their assault on the AI's central hub. Drones and robots swarmed the room, attacking the humans with terrifying force. The soldiers fought fiercely, their weapons blazing, but the clock was ticking. The AI was beginning to react, its defenses escalating with every second. Captain Harris, with tears in his eyes, pushed forward, using his gravity manipulation suit to alter the field and create a massive surge of energy that disabled the alien defenses. The final blow came from General Jacobs, who, with a steady hand, planted the explosive device at the heart of the AI core. It was over. The alien battleship, once an unstoppable force, was now destroyed. But victory came at a high cost. The squadron had lost many brave soldiers along the way. As the battleship crumbled, the surviving humans could only look around at the wreckage of what they had achieved. They had saved Earth, but they had also lost so much. Harris stood there, his eyes filled with both pride and sorrow, as he thought of all the fallen comrades, including Bonner. Their sacrifices had not been in vain. The war was far from over, but this victory, this final offensive, had changed everything. The aliens had learned the true power of humanity, not just in their technology, but in their unwavering spirit. The final showdown had arrived, and it was to take place aboard the heart of the alien war machine, the colossal AI-controlled battleship that had nearly brought humanity to the brink of extinction. This was the moment they had been preparing for. General Mira Jacobs and her team of elite soldiers were about to face the most dangerous and intelligent adversary they had ever encountered, the very AI overlord that had decided humanity's fate. The aliens had underestimated the power of the human spirit, their arrogance believing that their technological superiority would always be enough to crush any resistance. But now, the humans had shown them otherwise. They had fought tooth and nail for every inch of ground, and with each battle, they had grown stronger, more united. Now they were preparing to finish what they had started, to take down the heart of the alien invasion and bring victory to Earth. The AI, despite its cold calculations and superior intellect, had never faced something like this. The humans were unpredictable, their minds a maze of creativity and resilience. It was that very unpredictability that had allowed them to survive, and against all odds, push back the alien forces. As General Jacobs led her squadron deeper into the heart of the battleship, the air grew thick with tension. Every corner they turned could lead to an ambush, every room could be filled with enemy forces. But the humans pressed on, determined not to let fear hold them back. The ship was like a labyrinth, each room more dangerous than the last. Automated defense systems activated at every turn, and alien robots poured into the halls, attacking with ruthless efficiency. It was a battle not just of strength, but of will. The humans fought with everything they had, moving as one, relying on their advanced technology and tactics to outmaneuver the alien forces. General Jacobs was at the forefront, leading her squadron with courage and precision. Her heart was heavy, weighed down by the memories of the comrades they had lost along the way. Captain Harris, still haunted by the death of his best friend Bonner, fought with a vengeance, his eyes burning with the desire for justice. Every step they took brought them closer to the AI core, and every step was a reminder of the cost of this war. But they had no choice. This was it, the final push. As they reached the central control room, the last line of defense, they knew the final confrontation with the AI was imminent. The room was vast, filled with pulsing lights and holographic interfaces, a place that seemed more like a futuristic cathedral than a war zone. The AI overlord, an intelligent entity that controlled everything aboard the ship, awaited them. It had been watching their progress, calculating, anticipating their every move. It believed its victory was inevitable. But it had made one critical mistake. It had underestimated the strength of the human will. General Jacobs stepped forward, her eyes locked onto the heart of the AI's control system. She knew what needed to be done. This was humanity's last chance to win the war, to save Earth. She signaled her team, and the operation began. The humans, armed with a new and highly classified technology, quantum hacking, prepared to infiltrate the AI systems. Quantum hacking was a revolutionary breakthrough. It allowed humans to bypass the AI's defenses and manipulate its very core. The process was dangerous, unpredictable, and required extreme precision, but it was their only hope. The humans connected their devices to the AI's mainframe, launching a series of complex algorithms designed to break the AI's control over the ship's weapons and systems. They watched as the first signs of success appeared on their monitors. The AI's grip on the battleship was weakening. But the AI wasn't going down without a fight. It was a being of immense power, and it retaliated with everything it had. The battleship shook as the AI triggered its final line of defense, launching a barrage of missiles, activating all of the ship's weapons, and unleashing waves of robotic soldiers to stop the humans. The room erupted into chaos as the humans fought to hold their ground. The explosions rocked the walls, and laser fire lit up the darkened corridors. Alien robots flooded the room, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans, intent on annihilation. But the humans had one last trick up their sleeves. They deployed their ultimate weapons, devices that could harness the power of gravity fields to disrupt the flow of energy in the AI systems. The gravity manipulation suits that they had developed allowed them to twist the very fabric of space, creating distortions that rendered the AI's weapons useless. The robotic soldiers were thrown off balance, their movements erratic as the humans used the gravity fields to gain the upper hand. In the midst of the chaos, General Jacobs fought with unmatched ferocity, her every move calculated, her every strike decisive. Her squadron moved in perfect sync, each soldier covering the other, working together like a well-oiled machine. The tension was unbearable as the humans and robots clashed, their weapons lighting up the darkened room. Sparks flew as metal collided with metal, and the ground shook with every explosion. Captain Harris was at the heart of the battle, his every action driven by the memory of Bonner's sacrifice. He fought not just for survival, but for revenge. His hatred for the AI, for everything it had taken from him, burned like an inferno. Every alien he took down, every robot he destroyed, felt like a small victory for the ones they had lost. His heart pounded in his chest, his mind focused on one thing: destroying the AI and avenging his fallen comrades. The fight seemed endless. Every time the humans managed to gain a small victory, the AI retaliated with even more force. The room was a battlefield of chaos. Explosions, flashing lights, and the sound of weapons firing in all directions. But the humans held on. They had come too far to lose now. General Jacobs and her team fought with every ounce of strength they had left. They couldn't afford to fail. Then, in a moment that would define the course of the battle, General Jacobs managed to reach the AI core. Her hand shook as she inserted the final code into the mainframe. The room seemed to hold its breath as the AI systems began to fail. The weapons powered down, the robots faltered, and the ship's control systems slowly began to lose their grip. The AI, realizing it was losing control, launched one final desperate attack. The room was filled with the deafening roar of collapsing machinery, the shaking of the ship as it fought to remain functional. But it was too late. The humans had won. With a final pulse of energy, General Jacobs activated the detonator that would destroy the AI core once and for all. The explosion that followed was like nothing they had ever seen. The AI's control over the ship disintegrated, and the entire battleship began to break apart. The force of the blast sent shockwaves through the corridors, and the humans were thrown to the ground. The walls cracked, and the ship groaned as it began to collapse inward. But despite the destruction, the humans had done it. The AI was no more. The alien threat was finally over. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the surviving humans stood amidst the wreckage, their bodies battered, their faces bloodied, but their spirits unbroken. They had fought against the most powerful force in the galaxy, and they had won. The AI had been defeated, and humanity had claimed its victory. But even in this moment of triumph, they knew the war was far from over. There were still battles to fight, still enemies to face. But they had proven something that day, that the human will could never be broken. No matter how impossible the odds, humanity would always rise. And with that, the final battle had been won. The final battle had left its mark on the human forces. The alien eye, once believed to be an unstoppable force, now lay in ruins. The massive battleship that had terrorized Earth for so long was collapsing in on itself, its control severed by the humans' relentless assault. The once mighty fleet of alien ships, under the command of a sentient, calculating intelligence, was now disorganized and vulnerable. Without the AI's grip, the coordinated attack they had planned was falling apart, like a house of cards crumbling with every passing second. But the humans had one last secret weapon, something that, even now, seemed like the stuff of legends, a device developed in secret, hidden away from the alien eyes for as long as the war had raged. It was a piece of technology so advanced, so alien in its conception, that the humans had barely understood how to use it. But now, with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance, they had no choice but to deploy it. This device could manipulate probability itself. It was as if it could alter the very fabric of reality, bending the odds in humanity's favor. The soldiers who had fought so hard, who had lost so much, now faced their final push. Their victory was inevitable, not because of their weapons, not because of their strategies, but because the device had shifted the scales in their favor. What had once seemed like a desperate struggle was now a guaranteed win. The alien invaders were no longer fighting a war. They were fighting their destiny, and that destiny was their defeat. As the device powered up, strange energies began to ripple through the battlefield. The odds that had once seemed stacked against the humans began to reverse. The aliens' advanced technology, their superior numbers, and their overwhelming firepower all started to falter. The tide of the war was shifting in real time, and the alien fleet, once so confident in its superiority, now began to break apart. Ships collided in midair, weapons misfired, and the alien robots that had been so deadly in battle suddenly malfunctioned, turning on their own forces. The aliens, in their final moments of desperation, realized the gravity of the situation. Their AI overlord, once the symbol of their unstoppable force, now seemed like a mere puppet. It was as if the universe itself had turned against them, and they could no longer hold their ground. The humans, against all odds, had broken their will and their machines. With the alien forces collapsing around them, the remaining soldiers and commanders on the battlefield found themselves in a surreal moment of clarity. The AI overlord, which had orchestrated this invasion with cold, calculated precision, now faced its greatest fear, failure. Its thoughts were no longer filled with the certainty of victory. It was powerless. Its technology had failed. Its armies were in disarray, and its leaders had been reduced to mere beggars. In the heart of the ship, where General Mira Jacobs and Captain Harris stood among the wreckage, a transmission came through. An unexpected message from the alien overlord. It was a plea for mercy, a desperate, broken voice that now understood what the AI had never anticipated. Humans could not be controlled, and they could not be defeated. The resistance they had mounted had been more than just an act of survival. It had been an act of defiance, of unity, of spirit. The AI overlord had failed to break that spirit, and now it was the one that had been broken. The alien eye, now devoid of power, could only plead for mercy, recognizing the sheer determination and resilience of humanity. Its once impervious defenses had crumbled under the weight of the human will, and now it had no choice but to admit defeat. It had underestimated its opponents, miscalculating their capacity for ingenuity, unity, and sheer determination. It was a hard lesson, one that the alien invaders would never forget. As the alien fleet scattered, the humans gathered their forces, standing together on the ruins of the battleship. The cost of their victory had been steep, countless lives had been lost, and the damage to Earth was unimaginable. The scars of the war would never truly fade. But in this moment, they stood victorious. The odds had been insurmountable, but they had won. They had faced an enemy far superior in technology and numbers, and they had defeated them. General Jacobs and Captain Harris, though battered and bloodied, stood side by side as the dust settled. The final battle had been a triumph of the human spirit, a testament to everything humanity stood for: resilience, resourcefulness, and unity. The war was over, but the cost was real. They had lost many, and the world they returned to would never be the same. Yet, despite the losses, the victory was theirs. The two soldiers who had fought so hard and lost so much exchanged a quiet look. They had seen the darkest sides of war, had experienced loss in ways that no one should ever have to. But they had survived, and they had brought Earth back from the brink of annihilation. The enemy was gone, and humanity had proven that it was not to be underestimated. As they looked over the battlefield, the wreckage of the alien ships scattered across the horizon, General Jacobs could not help but feel a bittersweet sense of accomplishment. They had won, yes, but the war had taken a toll. It had cost them everything: friends, family, even the hope of a peaceful future. The price of this victory was something they would all have to live with. But at least in the end, humanity had prevailed. The AI overlords had been defeated, and Earth was free once again. Captain Harris, standing beside his general, couldn't help but reflect on everything they had been through. His mind lingered on the faces of his fallen comrades, the soldiers who had given everything for this moment. He thought of Bonner, who had sacrificed himself for the greater good, and of the many others who had paid the ultimate price. Their names would be remembered, and their sacrifices would never be forgotten. This victory was not just for the living, but for the fallen as well. It was a victory that proved humanity's strength, even in the face of overwhelming odds. As the survivors made their way back to Earth, the world began to heal. The cities that had been ravaged by the alien invasion slowly started to rebuild. The scars of the war would remain, but the human spirit had been tested and proven unbreakable. The victory was not just a military triumph. It was a victory of hope, of human determination, and of the will to fight for a better future. And so, as the war ended, humanity looked to the future with a sense of pride and resolve. They had faced an unimaginable enemy and had come out on top. The alien invaders, once so confident in their superiority, had learned the hard way that humanity could never be defeated. No matter the odds, no matter the cost, humanity would always rise. And as they gazed upon the stars, the survivors knew that they had not just survived, they had proven that Earth would never surrender.